just piano accompaniment this time. So let's see if we can manage to sync up with the piano. Everybody please stand. Psalm 133. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. It is like a precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down on the collar of his robe. It is as if the dew of Mount Hermon were falling on Mount Zion. For there the Lord bestows his blessing, even life forevermore. And now, we are one in the Spirit.
We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. And we pray that our unity may one day be restored. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. They will know we are Christians by our love. We will walk with each other, we will walk hand in hand. We will walk with each other, we will walk hand in hand. And together we spread the news that God is in our land. They will know we are Christians by our love, by our love. They will know we are Christians by our love. We will work with each other.
As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling that you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. Please take a moment to center down.
They're also good glasses cleaners. So today, at the end of the meeting, we're going to be doing the hanging of the greens. And for several people or denominations, this is like a really big beginning of the Advent season. And, you know, we talked a little bit last week about how Quakers are or aren't about having holidays. But I want us to think of ways that our meeting is actually brought together and helps inspire the different qualities that we're supposed to be celebrating through the Advent season and in this meeting. And this would be the first Sunday of Advent, and it would be the Sunday of hope. And one of the things that we're going to put up is probably a wreath. We've got a few to hang on the doors. And you're going to see wreaths all around, all through the Christmas season. So I would like, and I'm just suggesting, it's not a demand, but a suggestion, that you think about our meeting, about how we hold each other together as a wreath is held together. So, like I was saying, each one of these candles on the wreath, sometimes we do that. We light one each Sunday to commemorate one value that we're going to be holding up that day. And this would have been hope. Well, I want us to reflect on how that affects us as a meeting. So we've been reading and studying this Parker Palmer book on Thursday evenings. And this is one of the quotes out of it. And I thought it blended very well. I've got several of his quotes out of it for today. And he says, we can put chairs in a circle, but as long as they are occupied by people who have an inner hierarchy, the circle itself will have a divided life and one more form of living within the lie of false community. I've had several times this past year reiterated the difference between a Quaker pastor and other pastors. I'm not the leader. I follow you. My job is to be there for you spiritually. I'm what's called a released minister. That means you pay my house payment and a little bit to keep me from having to work full-time or 2 jobs so that I'm not able to be here for you. So it's an important thing to think about is that I'm equal to all of you. And that doesn't mean that I'm off the hook. It means that you're on it. That you're ministers too. That you minister to each other. in a way that's really important. And we only can do it if we're all equal. I know that it's hard when the pandemic starts this. This was put together on Monday. I sent the query out to everyone to think about how hope inspires us in the meeting. And so I had no idea that there was going to be a new variant or how it would impact us. But we can see that it does. Those who have health issues will not show up, and their siblings and their children and their grandchildren will not show up. So we need to keep the church body, the meeting body, in a supportive situation. No matter whether we're in this building or not. This is not a church. This is a meeting house. We are church to each other. We're church to the world. One of the things conversations that Jay and I had sometime this week was about people who don't read the Bible. And he was mentioning some, and I said, well, that's okay. You may be the only Bible that person ever reads, and you need to be a good Bible for that person to read it. And that's the important thing to live. It's like, they'll know us by our love. There's a reason for that song, because we need to be known by our love. Unfortunately, the one that everybody knows is copywritten, so Unger rewrote it this way so that he could actually put it out to congregations and we could have it for free. So we're going to learn to pause between the third and fourth verse so that we can actually sing about unity without having to pay for it. But we're going to show love to one another. I love how you call each other and how you talk to one another. I think as the meeting membership is building, we have to find ways to be more inclusive and make sure that all the new members are included in anything that we're doing or saying. And we start that by having prayer for everybody in the meeting. And I don't know how y'all do it, but I think about who was sitting up and down the pews, and then I think about, well, who was missing? So everybody can come up with a different way. We have a church directory that people can go through one at a time. I need to update it for a couple of, well, now 3 new names and addresses and that kind of thing to hold people in the light. But we do that out of a sense of commitment to one another, and I don't know that we articulate that we talk about why we do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we do that. There's this thing called psychological safety, and it's talked about a lot in business. We started back early 90s trying to build community among people who work together, because corporations found out the people that felt supported actually were more productive than the ones that felt threatened. We need to think about that. So if we're supporting one another, how do we do that? And I'm going to go through one chapter in the New Testament. There are at least 5 that go through and tell us how to be church to one another, and they're all saying the same thing. They say that we should provide empathy for one another, that we should provide prayers for one another, that we should go out and do the work of love so that people know that we love them, and so that we know that we love them, and that we should try to praise with each other when we're happy and have a joy. And we should pray and mourn with each other when we're in grief. And to be there for one another. So, isn't in mine. There's this verse out of Hebrews that reminds us to continue meeting, and I am not saying, say this pandemic gets worse and we decide we're not gonna meet in person. We still need to connect with one another. We still need everyone to know that we love them. I'm not saying that we're not going to meet. I'm saying if that happens down the road. Until you hear further directly either from me or from Dave, at 10:30 we're going to starting music so everybody comes in. And then, you know, you can join in as you want to. You can sing with it if you want to. You can sit in silence if you want to. It's fine. Please wear a mask. Please use the hand sanitizer. That's all we're asking. You are very good about sitting apart from one another and being respectful of one another. Nobody here feels like we have to expose somebody to make us feel faithful to God. We know that we can be good citizens and have good respect for one another, and that also shows faith in God. But one of the things that we do is we spur each other on to good works. It is hard when people feel depressed or down or isolated to even care about what in the world's going on with the homeless shelter in Middletown, or what's going on with the guy down the street that has lost his job. It's hard to do that. So we have to spur one another on. The word for this is like mixed with a spoon. We have to stir each other up. I've heard it preached that we have to like use the spoon and sort of spur each other on. But however you use your spoon, it's a good idea to help others and encourage others to be loving and kind. And that's important even in how we talk to one another. There are times when it is easy to be negative. This week, I don't know, I've been cranky, and it's nobody's fault. It's me, and I've been cranky, and I need to realize that, you know, and I have realized that so I can rein it in. But say I was cranky and I just decided, well, I'm just gonna go talk ugly about one of the members to another one of the members. Then that changes how that member interacts with that person. It changes their prayer with that person. We're supposed to be prayerful and encouraging of one another, but we're not supposed to be critical and judgmental of one another. And that's hard, especially if people are doing things that are totally different than what we think they should be doing. But we're not them, and God's talking to them too. So maybe we should butt out and just be as encouraging and as uplifting as we can be, edifying to one another. So if you look at these different kinds of quadrants that this particular theory talks about over, there's like 5 different psychologists that have said that they have this theory and it's theirs. So I don't care if it's Headley, May, I don't care who it is. We have to be trustworthy with one another, and we have to be trustworthy as a group. People need to know that if they're not here, they're missed. And they need to know that they're important in our lives regularly. And they need to know that we are appreciating them. They need to feel safety and trust and honesty and humility and connection. And this meeting has those things. Last week, I don't know, that was like the most wonderful spirit-filled day for me. It felt really great, and I really appreciate what that was like. Just sort of like everybody was just bubbling with community. And it helps us to be more upbeat through the rest of the week. Oh my goodness, with me being cranky this week, I don't know what would have happened if I would have hadn't had that good Sunday uplifting, you know? Y'all could be praying for Joe and Jay for those particular weeks. But this is another way that it's seen, where you look at the way you feel safe, or the way that you don't feel safe. And one of the things that we don't want to do is have any kind of toxic politics or guarded relationships. People should know that they can talk to each other in the meeting without fear of somebody, one, gossiping, or two, criticizing. And that takes work, because as human beings, we want that hierarchy. As human beings, we're animals that do a pecking order over and over again. That is our animal nature. We are called as Christians to try to move to our better nature, to try to be more loving and safe for one another, so that within a circle like this of people, we find ourselves a place to be encouraged, a place to feel spirit fed by one another. This is another quote by Parker Palmer out of the same book, and that book's out there. That's an extra one. If anybody didn't get one, I think I bought one for every family in the meeting to have one. There's the wording of it is a little Quakery, so those of you that aren't used to how Quakers talk, it takes a minute to get into it, right? I've heard the complaint already. But once you get into it, there's a lot of wisdom in there. And it talks about how fear is a part of our fundamental nature, and that's what makes us want to do this pecking order thing. And that's what makes us want to criticize. And that's what makes us want to gossip. Because we want power. We want that power to come up so that we don't feel insecure. But a meeting that is safe, like this one has to remain safe and has to be reliant for new people to know that they can talk to you about whatever is on their minds. And we can respond with love and encouragement and grace, and we can lean on each other for that to happen, so that we don't give in to fear. And he's talking about here, why in the world does it say be not afraid so many times in the Bible? And you know, you hear it said that there's 365 times that it's said. That's not true. There's about 1,000. And the reason is that we can't be our better natures if we are afraid. So we're going into this Christmas season, and I want you to think about the times that we hear be not afraid so many times from the very beginning all the way through the birth of Christ. Be not afraid, be not afraid, be not afraid. Be not afraid was told to Joseph. It was told to Zechariah, who then scoffed and lost his voice. It was told to Elizabeth. It was told to Mary. It was told to the shepherds in the field. We weren't told that it was told to the wise men or the people who came to bring gifts. Weren't told that, but they had to travel for quite a while through some pretty not great pathways, that if they were afraid, they might have stayed back. Sometimes when God is saying to us that we need to do something, we just have to go and not be afraid. But that's easier to do when we have people around us. And spirituality calls us to be afraid, to do things that are a little scary. If you think about like a tightrope, a person walking across a tightrope, things happen in life that make you fearful. Somebody that you love and care about deeply passes away. Something awful happens at your job or in your family, and you need to use that time to heal and to find the blessing in it, and it is almost impossible to do completely alone. I'm not saying crowd people when they need something. Let them come to you and be there for you and ask you for the support, and let that be okay. We have to be able to be supportive of one another. We have to have that little holding under whoever's walking across that spiritual rope. And if they fall, we have to gracefully put them back up on there again and encourage them to keep going and let them know we're going to be there for them. And then we have to do it. And that's church. And we're told that if we act in love, it will cast out fear. So we need to act in love all the time, because life can be pretty fearful. I'm going to go quickly through one of the chapters that like I said, there are many that talk about how people can act in a meeting and how it helps with spiritual growth. And so we're going to go with James 5, and one of the things it talks about is how to treat each other equally, how to strive for simplicity, how to focus on things that we need to change personally, to not value money over people, to always be fair to one another. That includes the workers of whoever is in the meeting. So yes, you can say, well, that's none of your business. Well, the Bible says it is. We have to treat people all around us with care and encouragement. And as far as I've seen you do, I've been to some of y'all's places of work, and I have seen the love that is all around and how it changes a work atmosphere. Because what we're trying to do is not only create this kind of safety here in this meeting so that we can do spiritual growth, we're trying to create it in our families so that our families can spiritually grow. We're trying to create it in our neighborhoods so our neighborhoods can spiritually grow. Because I don't know if y'all noticed or not, we need some spiritual growth right now. Everybody seems to be going a little bit off in a selfish direction. So us being able to be there for one another will help us, and will help each other to move towards God and through and in God's love. And understand that we're all this work in progress. Us and them. It tells us to stay positive and not discourage one another, to be reliable and not to judge. If somebody's hurting, you're there for them in their weeping. And if somebody's happy, you're there for them in their praising. You experience this life with them. They're not all alone on this spiritual journey. Yes, they are still totally accountable for their own lives. That's true. But we're accountable for how good of a friend we are. And we're called the religious society of friends for a reason. We are to be the friend out there that everybody can count on. And know that if you're my friend, I'm going to be there for you. You don't ever have to worry about your back. You don't ever have to worry about what's going to be said. Now, I'm not saying we're perfect at this. I'm saying that's the goal for us to get to. I'm not there, but I want to be. So the goal for us is to try to be the best friend that we can be to everybody that we run into. It asks us to look at how we collaborate with one another. I don't know, out here when you start looking at what all gets brought in to go to the food bank, that's amazing. When you realize a young person has been saving their change all year long for the Heifer Project, that's a good thing. You start seeing people living for other people, and you start realizing that the world has some hope, because if the only thing we're doing is being selfish, we don't. And if this is a Sunday about hope, then we're trying to get out there and help with hope by creating these wreaths, these circles of safety and trust. And we can learn from Jesus. And I'm not saying we should see ourselves as Jesus in anything that happens, but I think if we learned from Jesus and the different things that happened to Jesus, and we saw ourselves in the disciples or the people that were interacting with Jesus, and we tried to move ourselves from those people that were interacting to how can we be better, we look at the way that Jesus was with his group. He did not, at the Last Supper, he didn't go, okay, well, one of you is going to betray me. So somebody needs to sit on Judas. He can't leave this room. Right? One of you is going to deny me 3 times. So I'm just going to put duct tape over your mouth, and I'm going to keep that from happening. Jesus was respectful. And sometimes it is hard to be respectful because we don't want the bad things that happen in life to happen, but the bad things that happen in life happen. There's a story, the one I've written up here is Aesop's, that there was an old man and he had these 3 quarrelsome sons. And he brought them together, and they always disagreed, so he started talking to them, and he gave each one of them a stick. And he said, put them all 3 together, and he put them together, and he bound them, and they couldn't be broken. And then he handed the stick to each of them, and he said, alone, you can be broken. Bound together, no, you can't. Our families, our meetings, our neighborhoods, they need to know that we want them bound together. And this is such an important lesson that is in pretty much every religion. Pretty much every religion. Same story. We have it in Aesop, yes. But we also have it by Genghis Khan. We have it by Tecumseh. It's something that is innate to people that we can understand that this is how we work, that together we're better. We have it in Ecclesiastes. That a braided cord is a lot more strong than one strand. It's told in several other places. Sometimes it's the Scythian king. Sometimes there's as many as 80 sons. But we have to look at how that gives hope to the person that feels like one strand out there. The homeless fellow that just needs a sandwich. The person who is sad and that day just needed somebody to smile at them, or pick something out and compliment them on it, or encourage them. A cashier that has had people fussing at her all day long, or that kind of thing, or nursing people that come in and out. How can we be encouraging, trustworthy? How can we show integrity so that they can feel supported and in community, and so that they can grow spiritually? Our values, our spices, that's there for spiritual growth. That's not just a fun little thing for us to go through. Simplicity, peace, that's all about spiritual growth. And it's also about building community so we can all be there for each other.
There have been so many times that this meeting has given me hope. I know that there were times, especially when like the lupus was hitting and the doctors were not as encouraging as I would have hoped that they could have been, and you always gave me encouragement, and I really appreciate that. And I think the way that you have provided such a wonderful safety net of love around Jay and then around Joe, just thank you all for bringing hope to us so that we can bring hope to